Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm very excited because we're going to be discussing my top 23 reads of 2023. I went ahead and broke these down by genre according to yours truly. Some of them could cross into other genres, so maybe you would disagree with me on where I landed them, but this is just what my heart said works. So we have romance, we have historical fiction, we have cozy mystery, which is a new category for me. We have thriller, and we have fantasy, which I don't think I've ever had fantasy be a topic before as well. Heavy on the romance because I am primarily a romance reader. So if you also are, we're going to get into that. I will leave timestamps down below. So if you're particular to a certain genre, you can go to the timestamp list and then you can pop over to which genre is your favorite. In the year of 2023, I read over 200 books. GoodReads is telling me 221 and then Kindle was telling me 238. So I don't know where the disconnect was. I probably forgot to mark one, but somewhere in there, 221 to 238, I read a lot of books. The year prior, I read like 334 books, and I did do a top 22 of 2022. So if you want to check that out, I will link that down below. First up, we're going to discuss romance because it's my favorite genre. It's very hard for me to pick my favorite romance of the year because I feel like I read a lot of really great romances, and a lot of them I can't help but be like, you need to read it. All 9 of these, I need you guys to read them, and then I need you to report back to me. But probably my favorite, because I felt like it was the most well-rounded and hit all of the things that I personally love in a romance, was Mrs. Nash's Ashes by Sarah Adler. It had humor, it had emotion, it had a great plot, it had great characters. I just felt like it was the most well-rounded romantic book there is. So that is my top recommendation. If you're looking for a romance book, I would start there if you haven't read it yet. There is a tiny bit of spice in that one. I gave it a 1 out of 5 on Spice Factor, 5 stars. Most of these are going to be 5 stars. If not, they're probably a 4.5 star. The next book that's in my top 4 romance recommendations is Tame the Heart by Ava Hunter. I will not stop talking about this book. I really enjoy Ava Hunter a lot, and I feel like she's just getting better and better. This book is like a cowboy romance, so if you're looking for something like that, I felt like I was in a small town in Montana. She just took me away. I just felt like it was so well done. I really loved the characters. I really loved the story, and there was a beautiful message behind the book. So I would definitely recommend that if you're in like that, if you're looking for that cowboy book, you know. I personally think this was better than the very popular Elsie Silver series. Chestnut Springs, I think is what it's called. So if you're a big fan of that, maybe go read this and let me know if you agree, okay? The next one is Maestro by Auden Dar. I am generally the type of person that cannot do angsty books, but apparently if it's like ghost pepper level angst, I enjoy it because that's how this book was. I wanted to throw my Kindle through a wall and into a bathtub while reading this book. You go on a journey. I walked away just like I felt like my soul had exited my body. So there's that. Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. Please go pick up a Sarah Adams book. If you want non-spicy romance, just light flirting, just light kissing, Sarah Adams is your girl. She is coming out with an open-doored romance soon, but all of her books to date have been closed door, which means kissing, flirting, and like none of this, you know, steamy scenes happen on paper. They're just kind of hinted at. Practice Makes Perfect just gave me all of the butterflies, and Sarah Adams has a way of making the chemistry feel so strong even without the spicy scenes, which I think is just a testament to a phenomenal writer. So please go pick out a Sarah Adams book, but Practice Makes Perfect is my personal favorite from her. The next book that I'm going to recommend is Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan. She has 2 books out right now, as far as I know. Nora Goes Off Script and Same Time Next Summer. Both phenomenal. Very mature romances. Very well-developed, just wholesome, beautiful stories. Very dynamic, very powerful. I would 100% recommend it. And that is like the perfect summer read. So as we like head into the middle parts of this year, please pick that book up, okay? If you haven't beforehand. Read it right now for all I care, but if you really want to save like a good beach read, that would be a great one. The next book was Christina Lauren, The True Love Experiment. I still think about the character in this book. I loved her so much. I felt like she was just such a strong female, and I just loved her. I loved the plot. I loved how mature the relationship was, how the communication happened. I loved everything about it. It is the second in a series, but it's one of those situations where they just hint at the other characters, but you don't really need to read it in order. But I also really liked the first one. It's called The Soulmate Experiment, I want to say. Or maybe Soulmate Equation. I think it's Soulmate Equation. Loved that one too, but this one really like knocked it out the park. Catherine Walsh, the matchmaker. Listen, I keep talking about Catherine Walsh, but I follow her on Instagram and I just think she is the wittiest, cutest human being to ever exist. She's Irish, first of all, and her romances are set in Ireland. Anything else I need to say? Didn't think so, but just in case, this book was absolutely adorable. It just had like that almost like Hallmark romantic comedy feel, but she just elevates it. She takes it to the next step. Definitely recommend. The next book that I'm going to recommend is Right Man, Right Time by Megan Quinn. There was no way Megan Quinn was not ending up in my top books. Okay, there was no way, because she's just phenomenal. Read any book by her and you won't be sorry. But Right Man, Right Time, hilarious. The main character, the main female character, is so unhinged and so unfiltered. It's hilarious. It's an age gap romance. It's a hockey romance, but it's not immature. It's not juvenile. It's just great. Go read it. The next one was Mr. Big Shot by R.S. Gray. I have come to find that I love R.S. Gray and she never lets me down, but Mr. Big Shot was unexpected and amazing. It's set in a law office, but it didn't have a cold feeling to it. She somehow made the law office super warm, but still powerful and still like that corporate driven energy, but not cold. How she did it, I don't know, but I loved it. I loved the story. I loved the characters. Definite recommend. Definite. So those are all of my romance books that I recommend you to read. There's 9 total. I know you got a lot of work to do, okay? I've taken care of 9 reads for you. They should all be going on your to be read if you haven't already read them, okay? Next up, let's discuss cozy mystery. If you don't know what cozy mystery is, basically it's like a suspense mystery story that has like humor to balance it out. So it never feels super heavy. It just feels like fun, whodunit type vibes, and has usually like dry sarcasm or something. Very witty, little bit of wicked, stuff like that. Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for, I don't think I'm allowed to say the word, so I'm not going to say the word, but just look that up and you're going to get it. By Jessie Sutanto. I had like 3 top picks for the year, and Vera Wong's is up there. I don't know what it was. It's set in Chinatown. The lady's like, the main character is like 60. She's this cute little auntie living in Chinatown. Cutest little meddlesome little minx, you know what I mean? She's just giving her son trouble, guilting him into things, meddling in things she shouldn't be. There's a mystery happening. I just loved it. The humor was so good. The main character was so good. I just want to be her niece. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to be around her. I want her to cook food for me because the food that she was talking about in this book just sounded so good. The next one was The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This is the second in a series. I loved The Ex-Hex, but I felt like this one blew it out the water. And I feel like that must be very difficult as an author to have like a great first book and then have to come up with the second one, but she did a great job. It's like an enemies to lovers situation. It's set in a witchy town, perfect fall read, but it had such a beautiful like witty banter about it. I was cackling at points. The main character was hilarious. I absolutely loved her. The next one is Finley Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead by Elle Cosimano. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. This one I think is the second in the series. It was hilarious. Finley Donovan is like one of my favorite characters. She's a hot mess mama and she keeps stepping in things she shouldn't be stepping in, and she ends up like getting wrapped in these situations, and it's just hysterical. And the dynamic between her and her best friend, who's also like her live-in nanny, hilarious. I just absolutely loved it. Definitely recommend picking up that whole series. Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I loved this book. I just talked about it in my December wrap up. This is like a little bit of a fantasy, but a little bit of a cozy mystery, so I just like put it in there. I just felt like it was like wicked and charming at the same time. It had like witty humor. I don't know, I just really loved it. I just think that one is such a good one if you're looking for like a cozy mystery vibe. Next, we're gonna get into fantasy, And I will just tell you this, if you don't know this about me, I am not a fantasy reader. So if you are primarily fantasy, you might scoff at my choice, you know, but just know that this is your girl's first time dipping into this genre. Fourth Wing and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. Listen, I am the type of person that if something is super hyped up, I don't want to read it. I want nothing to do with it because I feel like if I don't love it, there's probably something wrong with me. You know what I mean? And then if I do love it, then I'm going to get judged with the rest of everybody else that's hyping up the book. But I had several people that continued to harass me and told me I needed to go with Fourth Wing. They said I had to do it. I listened and they were 100% correct. I absolutely loved it. Then Iron Flame is the second in the series. It's got like 400 extra pages. I didn't think I was going to be able to handle that because I saw some mixed thoughts online about it. Loved it even more. You can't have Iron Flame without Fourth Wing, but I felt like Iron Flame just took it to a new level. People are going to be keyboard warring and they're going to be like, Kate, you need to read Sarah J. Maas's ACOTAR series. I read the entire series this year. She's not on here for a reason. I did not enjoy that series. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The only book that I really enjoyed was the third book, in case you were wondering. Having said that, I love when other people love something. I'm not one of those people that's like, since I didn't like it, you shouldn't like it either. I love that people can love a book. That is the whole purpose of reading, is for you to find something that you love, that you enjoy, that brings you joy, that brings some type of purpose to your life. So if ACOTAR did that for you, I am actually genuinely happy for you. Just was not for me. Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, however, they blew me out the park. If you are like me and you don't normally do fantasy, I would recommend that book. It's like Game of Thrones meets Harry Potter meets Hunger Games. So if you like any of those movies, give it a try. I loved it so much that I got my husband to listen to the audiobook of Fourth Wing, and his commentary, let me just tell you, is hilarious. Okay, rolling into the next one is thrillers. I have 5 thrillers that I felt were worthy of being in my top 23 of 2023. The first one, to be honest, surprised me. This is Riley Sager. I think I'm saying that correctly. The Only One Left. A lot of people love Riley Sager. He's always like a 4-star for me, sometimes like a 3.5 star. The thing with Riley Sager books is they always have plot holes and weird endings. And I can't like get over it. You know, I'm like, afterwards I'm sitting there thinking about it like, really, dude? And I know he does it intentionally because it happens every single time. But The Only One Left was a 5-star for me. I just felt like it was a perfect thriller. It's very creepy, very like gothic-y vibes, which his books always are. It just felt like cold, like you felt like you were in the middle of a storm reading a book, you know what I mean? And it just had like that thriller vibe. I absolutely loved it. Okay, the next one was called None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. And this book, what I loved about this book is it felt very fresh and very now. One of the main characters is a podcaster, so I felt like it gave it that very like contemporary feel about it, and it felt like easier to relate to because it was based on more modern situations. There's a lot of chaos happening. I love how Lisa Jewell writes. I already knew that, so I knew going into it I would like it, but I felt like this was one of her best books for sure. The next book, I have no idea how to pronounce the author's name. I'm gonna let you know that out the gate, okay? But it was The Chestnut Man, and I think the last name is Soren Sveistrup. Probably completely wrong. If you're looking for like a horror vibe, I am usually not a horror girl, okay? I'm usually like, I need like a psychological thriller where my heart's not gonna bounce out of my chest. This book is very horror, very graphic, but for some reason it worked for me. I don't know. And I think they've turned it into like a Netflix series, but it had like a detective vibe about it, a little bit of a cold case vibe to it. I thought it was impeccable. 5-star. If you're into horror books, that one would definitely be for you. The next one was Stacey Willingham, All the Dangerous Things. This one I absolutely loved. The topic is very heavy, but somehow the author didn't make it feel heavy, so I really enjoyed that. I couldn't put the book down, but my heart wasn't like beating out of my chest. I just felt like it was a really, really well done thriller. Definitely look up trigger warnings before heading into that one because it's a very sensitive subject. But there's a lot of twists and turns and connections that I just didn't see happening. And the last thriller, which could be my favorite thriller from these recommendations, was The Arrangement by Kirsten Modglin. My best friend told me about this book, and I had not heard anybody else talk about it. And I'm still upset with people for not talking about it. But this was an incredibly well done thriller. I did not see the ending come whatsoever. I know there's a second book to the series, but I almost don't want to read it because I feel like it might ruin the first one for me, if that makes sense. But if you're looking for like a psychological thriller, if you enjoyed like those books like from Frida McFadden, I think, where it's like that domestic type of vibe, this one would be a really good one. Not at all the same plot, so that's not a spoiler in me saying that, but it just had that same vibe. The last genre we're going to talk about is historical fiction. Normally I read a lot more historical fiction, or at least I did last year. However, for some reason this year, I just couldn't get into historical fictions as much. I don't know if my brain is just not capable of focusing all of the energy as much as it usually does. Having said that, these three that I'm about to recommend were phenomenal. Phenomenal. The first one was The German Wife by Kelly Rimmer. This one follows two women with completely different histories, completely different mindsets. And the way the author navigates incredibly complex feelings just blew me away. It provided me an opportunity to have empathy in situations I didn't think it was possible for me to have empathy towards. And I'm a very empathetic person, but there's certain subjects that I just feel like I have a block. Like I can't feel compassion or empathy towards that. But the author opened my eyes in ways that I could not have imagined. 100% recommend. Possibly one of the best historical fictions I've ever read. I really, really enjoyed that one. The next one was The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. It has a dual timeline where there is a historical element, but there's also a modern day. So I don't know, it was hard for me because for me, it felt like a historical fiction, but really it could fall in a few different genres. But I just absolutely loved the story. There's a lot of times where I feel like I'm generally sucked into one timeline over the other, but in this one, I just felt a pull towards both of them in such a beautiful way. It's so beautifully written, and the stories that these women have, and the way that they kind of have similar theming, but a different vibe, beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. And last, but certainly not least, was Under the Magnolias by T.I. Lowe. I don't know what it was about this story. It just was simple and beautiful. It was breathtaking. The story was just breathtaking. It's one of those ones that impacts your heart. Like I feel like a deep impact from this story after walking away from it. It just was beautiful. It's a very wholesome story, but it's very, very deep. It's rooted in a lot of trauma. Definitely look up trigger warnings before heading into it. But the journey that the main character goes on and the way she handles the things that are done to her in life, the things that she had no control over, and the way she, reacts and the way she handles it, and it's messy, but she just was phenomenal. It made me so grateful for the things that I have in my life and that I haven't had to walk a path like she did, because it just, wow. Anyways, 100% recommend that book. So that is everything. I did pretty good, you guys. I could have talked a lot longer, but those are my top 23 reads for the year 2023. Do you have any recommendations of books that I should read this year? So far, I only know of one book that I want to read, and it's The Lineup by Megan Quinn. And then obviously when the third book of the Rebecca Yarros Fourth Wing and Iron Flame comes out, like at the end of the year, I'll be reading that. But other than that, I'm pretty open right now. So I would love to know what your top reads were. If you're like me and you can't pick like just one, feel free to leave me 5 or 10. I'm always looking for great reads. I've read quite a bit, but there are so many great books out there waiting for me. I just know it. I hope you find your next great read somewhere in my recommendations. If you aren't already following me on Instagram for books, it's @KateChapters. On there, I share book recommendations, book reviews. I also have some templates in case you want to do book content yourself. I will have that link down below, as well as my GoodReads in case you want to follow my reviews on there, because those are more up to date. But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a magical day. Bye.